Chairman Val, thank you so much also for you for being here with us from the Amah Mutsun tribe. Chairman Val is the chairman of the Amah Mutsun Tribal Band, and he serves as chair of the Amah Mutsun Land Trust as well, the president of the Amah Mutsun Land Trust since its inception. Val is a Native American advisor to the University of California in issues related to reparation. He also is a Native American advisor to the National Alliance on Mental Illness and the Phoebe Hearst Museum of Anthropology. Val is actively involved in efforts to restore tribal indigenous knowledge and to ensure that history is accurately told. He's here today to speak with us about the sacred site to the Amah Mutsun, Project Juristac. Val, welcome.
Thank you very much, Smee. And thank you very much, Smee. And thank you, Greg, for your words and for your opening. Very much appreciated. Before I get started, I want to offer prayers and blessings to the Yalamu, upon whose ancestral lands this event would be hosted if it was hosted in person. I want to recognize the Yamalu ancestors, their current members who we're talking to today with Greg and the others that he represents, and their future descendants. Their voice are the ones to be speaking for those lands. Today I'm speaking from Galt, which is a small community south of Sacramento. That's where I live. And the lands I'm speaking from are from the Valley Miwok. And I offer prayers and blessings to them. I want to thank the California Institute of Integral Studies for having this event and asking me to speak. It's an honor, and I'm very much privileged. Thank you very much. My name again is Valentin Lopez. I always like to start with our creation story. When I became chair, an elder told me, when I speak, always tell our history and always tell the truth. And so when I talk, I always make sure to share history. That's most important. It very well could happen naturally, but I always remember the words of our elders. Our creation story tells us that Creator, after making the lands and the waters and the plants and the wildlife, etc., the stars, the moon, Creator made man and woman last. And then to man and woman, he identified what their territory was. That's our tribal territory. And then Creator gave us a responsibility to take care of Mother Earth and all living things. And our ancestors recognized that as a tremendous and difficult obligation. We had responsibility to take care of the water, the air, the wind, the fog, the shadows. Those were our responsibilities. To take care of the insects, the birds, the four-legged, etc. Those were our responsibilities. And so our people, they went about trying to study all they could about Mother Earth so they would know how to take care of it properly. And they realized immediately that the most important thing of taking care of Mother Earth was recognizing that Creator made that Mother Earth is sacred. How could it be anything but sacred? How could it be anything but sacred? And so our people recognized that our first obligation was to maintain that sacredness on these lands. And we did that by developing prayers and ceremonies, by developing ways to take care of Mother Earth that were very respectful, Whenever we take a plant or take the life of an animal, we always make an offering and give a prayer of thank you and thanking you for helping sustain us. And then whenever we die, we'll go back into the ground and we'll provide the nutrients that are needed to take care of your future descendants, the plants and the animals' future descendants. There was a balance of doing that. Our people learned that we needed to ensure, developed a lot of important ceremonies. And a lot of those ceremonies were such as having a ceremony to call back the migrating geese. And that was twice a year. But prior to calling back the migrating geese, we had to make sure that the wetlands and other areas of the geese, when they came in, that we had the food resources ready for them. When the geese come in, what's really important to them were the insects. The insects gave them protein and fuel, helped them get their weight back on, helped them get their strength back together so that they can continue their flight north and south twice a year. We had to take care of those resources for them. We had to take care of the resources for the salmon. When the salmon came in, we had a ceremony to call back the salmon. It was a sacred ceremony. And the ceremony and the salmon are sacred. And so whenever they would come in, and before they go up to the river, they have to transition from salt water to fresh water. And so they kind of hang out at the mouth of the river before heading up for a week, perhaps 2 weeks before going up. But during that time, it was important that they had a high abundance of the small fishes to consume so they can get the strength and the energy to make their journey up the river. So we made sure that there was an abundance of sardines, anchovy, smelt, and a lot of the other small fishes that were so important to those salmon to make their climb back home to the spawning beds. We had ceremonies to keep balance in the 4 seasons, etc. Our people created ways, learned how to use fire to manage the landscapes, recognizing that whenever that smoke rose, that was part of the ceremony. It was like whenever prior to ceremony, we smudge ourselves to purify and cleanse ourselves and to bless ourselves and to prepare ourselves for prayer, to ask Creator to help us, to heal us, to give us strength, to give us direction, to take care of our families. Same things we pray for now. That's how we prayed. But whenever you would use fire to manage the landscapes and stuff like that, the smoke would go right up in the trees and bless and smudge those trees to purify them and to cleanse them. And in doing that, it would go up and it choke the bugs out of those trees. And whenever they would fall, that tree would get much healthier. You always had a great abundance of acorn following a fire. Our people learned how to take care of we had a tremendous number of grizzly bear in our territory. In our territory, the grizzlies did not hibernate. There was no need for them to hibernate. The climates were mild, the resources were many, but we had to make sure that they had adequate resources through the 4 seasons, the winter, the summer, the fall, and the spring. Or if people did this for thousands and thousands of years, taking care of Mother Earth. Greg mentioned that our people did not try to dominate the plants. They recognized that, our ancestors recognized that all plants had a responsibility to take care of a community. And that community included the insects, the fungi, the birds, the 4-legged, and people. All plants had that responsibility. There was no monoculture to our ancestors. There was no such thing. And those plants were so essential and sacred. And the way we took care of them, they developed really deep roots. And those deep roots are very important for making them resistant to fire, resistant to flooding, resistant to drought. And taking care of them to take care of that community also made them very resistant to disease. Those things are very important for us today as we deal with climate change. Because Mother Earth gave us the responsibility to take care of, because Creator rather gave us a responsibility to take care of Mother Earth, that right there must be recognized as moral authority. Only Indigenous people in their lands have the moral authority to speak for those lands, and they must be listened to. To our ancestors, what gave a person truly riches, true wealth? Today, you ask somebody, what is riches? What is wealth to you? Their car, their home, their bank account, what school they go to, what neighborhood they live in, what shoes they wear, what, all their material possessions. That's what's important to them. To our ancestors, there were two things that defined true riches, true wealth. And those two things were the indigenous knowledge of the ancestors. Did that person know the ceremonies? Did that person know where the places of power were? Did that person know our songs? Did that person know how to take care of the wildlife and the plants? Know how to take care of the oceans, the sea mammals, the seagrasses, the kelp? Those are critical knowledges, so important knowledge to our ancestors. And the person that carried those knowledges was the person that was most respected and most valuable and most important and had the most wealth to that community. The second thing that defined the person's, that defined true riches and wealth to our ancestors was relationships. Did that person have a good relationship within their families, within their tribes, with neighboring tribes and beyond? Did they have good relationships with the elders and with the youth? Did they have good relationships with their ancestors and their descendants? Yes, we have relationships with our descendants today. We're preparing the world and our territories for them. Do they have relationships with the plants and the animals and the oceans? And most importantly, do they have relationships with the Creator? Do they know how to pray in ways that the Creator will listen to them? And do they have the kind of relationship that will allow them to hear, that Creator will allow them to hear and to listen to Creator when he talks, when he answers them, responds to them, when he asks them to do things? We must be able to listen in that way within the relationship with all these things. Those are what true wealth and true riches are. And that's what we must recognize today as being true, the most valuable, most important. Today, they've taken the sacred out of all land stewardship. They've taken the sacred out of all functions of everyday life, completely removed. Their ego and their science is more than enough, is all they need. Science will fix all our problems. Just ask our air and our water. What do they think about that? Ask the plants. It was science that developed the fungicides herbicides, etc. They gave us the plastics and the fuels and the carbons and the filthy air. Science is not going to fix the problem. If we're going to deal with the effects of climate change today, it must be indigenous led. I want to talk about a particular challenge that our tribe has today. Our most sacred site, it was a site at which we had four major tribal villages there, living at or on that site. And that was for the purpose of keeping that site sacred. That is where our most sacred site was held. The place is known as Juristac. Juristac translates to the place of the big head. And the big head was our most important, our most important and most sacred site. Our people held ceremonies there for healing, for wellness, for renewal, for balance in our world, etc. And then came our brutal history. As Greg talked about some of our history, you know, we were brutally colonized over 3 periods. And all 3 of those periods, the Mexican mission period, the Spanish mission period, the Mexican period, and the American California period. All 3 of them wanted to destroy our culture, our spirituality, our environments, our indigenous knowledge, and our humanity. Greg mentioned that we lost like 92% or so over the period of those 3 periods of colonization. There were very, very few survivors. Very few survivors. And when Kroeber wrote the Handbook of California Tribes in 1923, I believe, and this is exactly what Greg was talking about, in that book, he said that there were no more, that the Ohlone was an extinct tribe. We were all gone. Anyway, back to Juristac. At Juristac, today, this site is south of Gilroy, and Gilroy is about 20-25 miles south of San Jose. So geographically, that tells you where in California this is at. There's an effort to do sand and gravel mining of our most sacred site, to take down 4 of our most sacred mountains, turn it into a pit in the ground. So some very fortunate soul can make 4 or 5 times the money for which than what they bought that property from. And that person is seen like a very wise person, a person who's doing the right thing, a person who will take care of his family by destroying our culture and our spirituality. Our tribe is fighting hard to protect Juristac. We developed first of all, the general plan of this county, Santa Clara County, will allow mining here. So it's going to be hard for the Board of Supervisors to say no. And we're told the only thing that will avoid, that will save this mine, if it is, this mining, keep that mining permit from being approved, is overwhelming public support. So we've been speaking out. That's why one of the reasons I'm here today, I'm happy to speak to you about this. We've been speaking out and asked for people to support our effort to protect Juristac, to not let that mining permit be approved, to let them know that Native American sacred sites, that Native American spirituality matter, and they're important, and cannot be and should never be monetized. We're trying to get communities and schools universities, community colleges, etc., to pass resolutions asking, and also asking organizations and individuals to write letters to the county, to sign our petition, to get your organization to sign to pass a resolution and notify the county that that organization opposes them approval of the mines. And then when it comes time for public meeting, when it comes time for those boards of supervisors to join us, perhaps virtually we can make that work, but in person is always best, as you know, to join us and say, this is not allowable. You cannot do this. You must not do this. I want to mention one thing about that spirituality, Native American spirituality in California. In the 1880s, 1882, 85, 88, someplace in there, I forget what exactly, they outlawed in the United States now all Native American spiritual practices at all. We could not have sweats. We could not hold ceremony. We could not wear ceremony regalia, etc. It was outlawed. And it remained outlawed. It was illegal for us to have ceremonies or spiritual gatherings for any reason at all. And for most tribes, that was true up to 1978. In 1978, Jimmy Carter passed the Native American Freedom of Religion Act, or something very similar to that. That was a very important act that was passed. But what it omitted, what it did is it stipulated that for federally recognized tribes, that Freedom of Religious Act applied to them. But that Freedom of Religious Act did not apply to federally unrecognized tribes, of which both Greg and I are a member of a federally unrecognized tribe. So when Greg and his people hold ceremonies, they are breaking federal law. When our tribe holds ceremonies, we are breaking federal law. I can tell you, I'm ready to get arrested any day. Those ceremonies will continue to be held. I'd last like to talk about the impact that that brutal history had on our people. It had a tremendous effect that today we call the historic trauma. After all, when you go through a period of slavery, brutality, rape, torture, unimaginable death rates, etc. How do parents teach their children to have love, to be happy, to know that they're a good person and that tomorrow's going to be a better day? How do parents teach their children that? To know what their songs are, what their prayers are, what their places of power are. To have a good identity, to know why Creator brought them here to Mother Earth and what their obligation is to Creator and to other people. That historic trauma, and as a result of generations, of harm, of brutality brought to our people, has resulted in tremendous rates of addiction, suicide, brutality, incarceration, tremendous rates of depression, of sexual molestation, rape, and it goes on and on. 12 years ago, in what, when I was in my bio, you heard that I was a Native American advisor to the National Alliance on NAMI. Our members would call me when they were dealing with really, truly difficult issues. And in 1 week, I got 4 calls. And I always went to my bedroom and closed the door to take those calls for confidentiality. And after that 4th call, I'm sitting there and saying, how can we, as a tribe, ever be successful, ever develop a good future for our people if we allow this to continue? And so we gave it a lot of thought, and we talked among our council, our tribal council, and we decided to start holding bi-monthly tribal wellness meetings. And this past October was our 12th meeting, our 12-year anniversary of holding bi-monthly meetings. And at these meetings, we learned a lot about healing from historic trauma. And to heal, a number of things must happen. You must be able to tell the truth, to tell our stories. We must be able to restore our culture and our spirituality and our traditional knowledges and our traditional landscapes. That's how we heal from that historic trauma. But another important part of healing is recognizing the perpetrators must heal. How can the state of California, how could we ever have a healthy relationship with the state, with the feds, with counties, for us, the Catholic Church? How could we ever have a healthy relationship with them if they, as perpetrators, refuse to tell the truth of our history, of what happened to our people? If they today allow the destruction to our cultural and spiritual sites, the laws on those books allow the continued destruction of our cultural and spiritual sites. How can we ever have a healthy relationship with them? How they expect to say, oh, don't worry about it, that's okay, just give us a little bit of money, or don't worry about it, let's just be friendly going forward. I can tell you one thing, for our tribe, there's no more free rides. We're not interested in relationships until there is healing. And what's also important to recognize is not only that people and institutions need to heal. We have to think of the historic trauma of Mother Earth and the wildlife. What is the historic trauma? What is these impacts of this history on them? I know we see it every day. But the truth must be told. They must tell their stories. We must listen to them and learn from them and pray together with them and heal together. I'll stop there. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chairman Valentin. I know I'm going to be taking a deep breath at the conclusion of your words, receiving fully what you've shared, hearing very clearly your request for support for your sacred Mount Juristac, for petitions to be signed. Links are in the chat, as our guests can see, and we will continue this conversation with all the attendees after our panel today. I want to acknowledge deeply the profound words that you've shared. I know both you and Greg have spoken this many times to many people, you and your relations have many times taken the stage, taken the proverbial mic, and shared these stories. And it is very important that we do hold a shared acknowledgement of the history, of the violence, the genocide, the forced removal from the lands that we are all standing, sitting, walking on, knowing that this isn't something of the past, but this is something that you are all facing and enduring every day. And there are many rites, many personal, spiritual practices that I and many others take for granted, that threaten your safety and your liberation, remove your liberation. And the work of practicing, cultivating that, holding that for your communities remains with you. And I hope that as we move into new layers and layers of relationship, as the education is more expansive and deeper and more reverently received and exchanged with you all and with Indigenous people throughout this land, throughout the world, I hope that that energy can be distributed among us for healing and for a path forward. I'm speaking that on my own behalf. And again, I'm just so grateful and honored to have you both here today speaking with us.